Right. So we are live now and share my screen so that we can go through the agenda for today. So we will be covering verse number 7 to verse number 11. As we had discussed in the last session that we'll be taking 5 verses at a time and we'll be going through it. As usual, first of all, I offer my humble obeisances to our founder Acharya and my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this particular session is dedicated for the pleasure of my spiritual master and for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Whatever I am going to speak, I'll merely repeat what I have read in the books of Srila Prabhupada. I'll merely repeat what I have heard in the lectures of Srila Prabhupada. And I'll merely repeat what I have learned from the Guru Parampara and my Siksha Gurus of ISKCON. So this is the agenda for today. So we'll start with the Mangalacharan. Then today we'll cover the shlokas 7 to 11, and then we will have a question and answer session. There are any. Okay. Yes. So now I'll invoke some pranam mantras, and those who know can repeat after me while staying on mute. And those who don't know, just listen to it very attentively because listening is also very, very purifying. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्ते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यं हरि ओम. Okay. So after invoking auspiciousness, we will move shloka number 7. Okay. Before we move, does anyone want to summarize, like, if you can recall what were some important points that we had, gone through in the last session, verse number 1 to verse number 6? Yes, Ivana Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In the previous session, we read the text from 1 to 6, in which the first one was told by Dhritarashtra, and in which he expressed his fear about his sons losing the battle. And he was asking Sanjay what was happening in the battlefield. He was hopeful that the Pandavas would give up their idea of fighting because Kurukshetra was a pilgrim place and the Pandavas were very
Nice.
devotees. And in the other text, Duryodhan spoke to his guru Dronacharya, and he was trying to He was trying to convince him so that he does not give up fighting
Yeah.
by telling about Drishtadyum, the son
Mm.
of
Yes. So no,
uh,
Drupad.
son of Drupad, so that he does not forget and he continues fighting. He was trying to tell him the the fighters on the side of the Pandavas, how brave they were, and the how much Duryodhana needed his
Mm.
help to win the battle.
Very nice. Very nicely summarized, Mataji. So yes, that's indeed true. And we also saw two or three things. Like first, the vows which Bhim had taken, right? And why was Duryodhana always fearful of Bhim, right? We have seen that. And from verse number 2 to the to verse number 11, basically till today, like what we are going to cover, we will see the diplomatic nature of Duryodhana, how great diplomat he was, and he, as we had discussed in the last session, that he knew exactly whom to approach, when to approach, and what to speak when he approached a certain person. Okay, so that was the whole idea. Like Duryodhana was fully aware of all these things. So in continuation to that, today, like from verse number 7 to verse number 11, we will see that how diplomatic he was, and you know how he twists and turns the words, and what were the tactics that he used in order to bring some of the people to his side, basically to fight for him in the battle of Kurukshetra. Okay. So all these things we'll see some nice learnings today. Maybe like two lessons we'll take from today's verses, 5 verses that we are going to cover. And yeah, we'll start with that. So I think Shweta Mataji has not joined today, but she gave a very nice suggestion last time that when we start reading, we will maybe I'll read it out first, and the person who is about to read the translation and purport, they can just follow after me the verses that I'm going to recite. So in that way, it will be easier also, and yeah, we'll not be making mistakes while, or rather, will the mistakes while make like pronunciation mistakes or while chanting these verses will be down to a minimum at least. I hope so. So we will go in the alphabetical order. So we'll start with you, Ivana Mataji. Okay, please repeat after me this verse, and then after that you can read the translation and the purport. So purport of all these 5 verses are very small ones. So we'll also read the purport for these verses. So Mataji, please repeat after me.
Yes,
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये
तानि बोध द्विजोत्तम
तानि बोध दिवो
द्विजोत्तम
द्विजोत्तम
नायका मम सैन्यस्य
नायका मम सैन्यस्य.
संज्ञार्थ तान् ब्रवीमि ते
Prabhuji, can you repeat that?
संज्ञार्थ तान् ब्रवीमि ते
Sanyartham tani bhir
तान् ब्रवीमि ते.
tantra vimite.
So you can read the translation, Mataji.
But for your information, O the best of Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force.
So we'll go back to the slides today, and now these slides basically I have deliberately prepared, to make a little more interesting. If things get boring, so once you look at the pictures, then people are engaged basically in that. Okay, so this is a very nice verse basically, okay, to analyze. Again, like there was no purport in this verse because just this verse, what it speaks is that Duryodhana just went. We have seen in the last few verses that Duryodhana went to his teacher Dronacharya, and he's like just started glorifying the army of the Pandavas. How many stalwarts and how many great warriors were there on the side of the Pandavas, right? Now, then what happened is that, when all these conversations were going on, all the stalwarts from the sides of Kaurava also, right? They started gathering around Duryodhana and Dronacharya. Okay, and Duryodhan, being an excellent diplomat, he didn't want, he was cognizant of the fact that, okay, I have said too much about the Pandavas army, uh, you know, in front of my teacher Dronacharya. So this old man might be discouraged, after listening to, the glorification of Pandava's army, the army of the enemies, basically. And also all the stalwarts were there all around. He also didn't want to discourage them. Okay, the commanders, military commanders who were there in his army, he also didn't want to discourage them, because if you are glorifying the enemy, then the morale might go down. So Duryodhana was fully, cognizant of this fact. And but we also should understand that he was glorifying Pandava's army because internally he was very fearful. He, as we had mentioned in the last session, that he had not expected Pandavas to mass such a huge army and come to fight on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So basically, it was the fear which was speaking, as glorification of Pandava's army. But now that Duryodhana realized that, okay, too much glorification is also not good, because it may discourage his own people. So now he says that, okay, what I'm going to do, oh, the best of Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are specially qualified to lead my military force on our side. Okay, so this is what he wants to say. And another very important point is that we have seen in the previous session also that continuously, so there was this doubt in the mind of Duryodhana, okay, that this Dronacharya, since he is the common teacher of both Pandavas and Kauravas, he will, and especially like he had a very soft corner for Arjun, because Arjun was his favorite, disciple. So Duryodhana was always skeptical about the fact that this person may, either switch the sides, or he may, totally give up fighting, at the last moment. And he didn't want this to happen. Okay, so continuously, he in the last session also we saw that how he was trying to incite anger within Dronacharya by taking the name of Drupad, right? And because Drupad and Dronacharya had a history, uh, when they were young. So here again also, like he's trying to incite anger, in Dronacharya, because all the stalwarts were just standing beside them. So Duryodhana is, by saying this verse, basically, that, okay, let me tell you about the captains who are specially qualified in my army. He's indirectly hinting to Dronacharya. See, even if you have some sentiments attached for the Pandavas, and if you have some soft corners for them, and even if you decide not to fight, okay, right? I mean, that's totally fine. I mean, anyways, I'll be victorious because I have so many stalwarts on my side, right? So just look at the diplomatic behavior of this Duryodhan. That sometimes he is like glorifying Dronacharya himself, and at the same time, sometimes he is tightening the screws as well. So that in some way or the other, he is just trying to incite the anger, and uh, diplomatically he is trying to play around, with people on his side. So we have seen, like, although he was a very, what to say, he was not a good person, Duryodhan, right? But still, from all this, the diplomatic behavior that he has exhibited in these verses, there are some leadership lessons that we can learn from him. Okay. So what are those leadership lessons that we can learn? First, a leader should not create negativity among the subordinates by their actions or speech. Okay, so when he realized immediately that, okay, he is just glorifying the Pandavas too much, so that could have created a negativity, within his, the commanders of his army, basically, right? And a good leader should be fully aware of this fact that in no way, by his action, by their actions or speech, some negativity, creeps in to within the team, basically. See, because we all are leaders in some aspect of our lives. Okay, either we are leaders at our homes. Okay, we are managing the home affairs. Okay, the domestic affairs, basically, or we are, some at some leadership position in our offices in the corporate sector. Basically, we are leading a team or managing a team. Okay, or we can be leaders in our housing society complex. We can be leaders at the state level or at the country level, or even at international level as well, right? So these are some of the lessons that we can learn, that the subordinates, basically, they are continuously observing the leaders. Okay? They're continuously like scrutinizing the leaders, their behavior, the way they speak, the way they present themselves, right? So a leader should be fully cognizant and aware of this fact that, okay, he's being continuously monitored. he or she is being continuously monitored, and at no point of time their actions or speech should be such that it brings some negativity, okay, among the subordinates or the team members of a leader. Okay. Second, they should be able to absorb all the pressure. Okay, and the pressure should not leak down to the subordinates, because in that scenario the entire team will crumble, basically. Okay. So that is what Duryodhana is also doing here. Although he was fearful from within, about the strength of the Pandavas, the army which they had amassed, and he was having some doubts, after seeing that army, but he did not allow that fear to, creep into the minds of the people who were standing around him, his military commanders. So this is another lesson that we can learn, that we should not, the leader should be able to absorb the pressure, and they should not be able to, like leak it down to the subordinates. Third most important thing is that, sorry, fourth point, which is most important, that at the time of crisis, okay, the leader should always approach the superior. Because by approaching the subordinate, I mean, it's not going to add any value, right? More often than not, the situation will be such that the subordinate will not be able to do much for the leader. They will not be able to help him out much, him or her out much. Okay. So at the same time, so this is very important, that at the time of crisis, the leader should always approach the superior. And this is exactly what Duryodhana did by approaching Dronacharya, who was his teacher. These are some nice leadership lessons that we can learn from verse number 7 of the first chapter. I would request that if you all have any questions, please note them down. We will have a question and answer session, towards the end of the session. So we'll go to the verse number 8. Let's see who is next. Lalita Mataji, you are next. So if you are able to read, then just let me know. It's
Yeah,
fine.
Prabhuji. I can read.
Yeah. So you want me to start, or you can read the verses on your own, Mataji?
Oh, Prabhuji, no, I am not that good. I
Okay,
will
okay. No
I will
worries,
speak in
Mataji. Just,
broken Sanskrit only.
yeah, just repeat after me. No problems. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha
भवान् भीष्मस्य कर्णस्य
Vipascha Simitinjayah
कृपस्य श्रीमृत्युञ्जय
Ashwathama Vikarnascha
अश्वत्थामाविकर्णस्य
Somadhattasthitaiva cha.
सौमदत्तिस्त्वत्वे च.
You can read the translations.
Okay. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called
Purishrava.
Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle.
You can continue with the purport, Mataji.
Okay. Purport. Duryodhana mentioned the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, and Ashwathama is the son of Dronacharya, and Somadati or Bhurishrava is the son of the king of Bahalikas. Karna is the half brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya.
Yes. So in this particular verse, we are seeing that how Srila Prabhupada is actually giving in this purport, telling us that how all the personalities that uh, Duryodhan mentioned in this particular verse. In the last verse, he said that, okay, now just hear about our commanders on our side, right? So now he's taking a few names of the commanders on his side, right? And we can see in the purport what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that the people whom he names are either related to Dronacharya or they are related to Duryodhana. Okay, and we'll also see that all the names that Duryodhana is taking in this particular verse, he's not just naming them randomly. Okay, that okay, I'm seeing someone standing in front of me, so I'm taking his name. Another name, not like that. Very naap tol karke, right? He's actually what he's, just what to say, he's cherry picking actually, whom to speak. Okay, I'll take his name. Okay, not you, then I'll come to him like that. Okay. So again, this is the diplomatic nature of Duryodhana. We will see how this happens. Interesting verse. This is. So again, we see that diplomacy of Duryodhana is at its best in this particular verse. Okay. Now he deliberately, mentions the personality whom he feared either may show some slackness in the battle or may opt out of the war. All the names that he has taken, okay, he is actually fearful that maybe they may opt out of the war, or they may not fight with 100% of their capability. Okay, so and he's just trying to infuse some enthusiasm in them. He's saying that look, they are all stalwarts. They have always been victorious in battle. Okay, so and another important thing that we can see here is that the verse actually starts with Bhavan. So he's talking to Dronacharya, Bhavan, first he says you, and then Bhishmascha Karnascha. Then he names Bhishma and Karna. Okay? So interesting thing here is that when Duryodhana was about to speak this verse, so it is said that he might be in the dual state of mind. He might have been caught in a dual state of mind. Why? Because he was talking to Dronacharya, who was his teacher, and but at the same time, in his army, the commander in chief was Bhishma, right, who was the senior most personality, not just in the Kauravas army, but in the entire, like all the Pandavas and Kauravas taken together. In this entire battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was the senior most personality, right? So Duryodhan might have been caught in two states of mind, that whom to name first, because if he names someone first, then other might feel bad. Okay, so they both were very big stalwarts. One was the teacher, other was commander in chief, senior most personality. But again, Duryodhana thinks and he names Dronacharya first, Bhavan, like you, and then after Bhishmascha Karnascha, because he was fully aware of the fact that if he like refers to Dronacharya first, Bhishma will not feel bad about that. Why? Because Bhishma was one personality who would always stick to what was written in the Shastras. Okay, and in the Shastras, it is clearly said, like like Bhishma knew that he is a Kshatriya and Dronacharya is a Brahmana. So honoring Brahmana before Kshatriya is something which has been advised in the Shastras, and Bhishma would never mind that. Okay, so he starts with Bhavan, right, like that, you, and then Bhishmascha Karnascha. Now, second is again like Bhishma is as I said earlier, he is the commander in chief of this army. So obviously he's naming him, but he will not stop here. In the coming verses, we'll see that he names Bhishma over and over again, right? Because he's too much dependent, actually, Duryodhan, on Bhishma's courage and like his military arts, basically, also his experience. And now, second thing is that he mentions Karna. Now, as I said earlier, that each and every single name he takes is a very deliberately chosen and cherry-picked name, basically. Okay, he is not naming these personalities randomly. Okay, so he says that Bhishmascha Karnascha. Now, yeah. So why now? So for your information, I would like to tell you that Bhishma and Karna, they both were not on very good terms, really. Okay. Why? Because apart from Kunti and Lord Sri Krishna himself, only Bhishma was one personality who actually knew that Karna was the son of Kunti and he was the brother of Pandavas. And Bhishma never wanted Karna to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra against Pandavas. So he tried his level best to stop Karna from fighting actually the battle, to an extent that before the battle started, before they were making the arrangements for the battle, Bhishma actually also cited the birth of Karna, right? That okay, he belongs to a charioteer family. His father is a charioteer. He is a Sut Putra, basically. Okay, so and fighting can only be done by Kshatriyas. So let's not include Karna in the battle. Okay. So after this, obviously, this didn't go down well with Karna also. So he had some bitter feelings towards Bhishma, and it was clear, like this Karna was actually always used to think that, okay, what is the use of my fighting if I kill all the people and, help the Kauravas to win the battle? But, all the, what to say, all the glories and all the credit will go to basically Bhishma. This old man will take away all the credit because he is the commander in chief of the Kauravas army, right? So because of all these things, there was a constant tussle going on between Karna and Bhishma. They were not on very good terms. And Duryodhan was fully aware of this fact also. Okay, he knew that, okay, if I name Bhishma and if I don't name Karna, then Karna may feel bad and he may opt out of the war again. Right? So we can see he is always, the names which he is taking is basically primarily either they are related to Dronacharya in some way to infuse some enthusiasm in Dronacharya, or he is naming those personalities whom he fears that they might opt out of the war before the battle starts. Okay, so this is the diplomacy of Duryodhana. Okay, so now he names Karna. Okay, so that is one reason. And then third names which he take is I think Kripascha, which is Kripacharya. Now Kripacharya, as we have read in the purport, he had a sister who was married to Dronacharya. Okay, so he was a relative of Dronacharya. And Ashwathama, who is the son of Dronacharya. Okay, so by taking these two names, like he is actually, infusing some enthusiasm that, okay, look, relatives are here in this Kaurava side, so you should not be, having any emotion towards Pandavas. All your relatives are on my side, so just fight with your full, potency and full strength. Just do not show any slackness towards Pandavas. That is what he is trying to say to Dronacharya. And then Vikarna. This is a very important thing to understand. Why he is naming Vikarna? Now, Vikarna was the brother of Duryodhan, actually. Okay, and uh, as far as his military capabilities were concerned, his physical strength, military capabilities, military arts, he stood nowhere in front of Duryodhan, in front of Dronacharya, in front of Bhishma, in front of Karna, or even Ashwathama for that matter. So why is Vikarna being named here? Okay. So the reason is that Duryodhan was again very fearful, of Vikarna not fighting. Why? Because when Draupadi was being disrobed, in the courtroom of Hastinapur, in front of everyone, basically, everyone kept quiet. She piteously, she was seeking help from all the senior members who were sitting in the courtroom. No one came up to help her. But this Vikarna was the only person, on the side of Kauravas who stood up to who stood up to Duryodhan, and he said that, look, whatever we are doing is not right. Okay, we should just let her go. So from that point onwards, Duryodhan was again very fearful that, okay, this fellow, he might change the party, before the battle starts. So that is the reason why in among these stalwarts, he's also naming Vikarna, even though he was not, so his military capabilities were not, at par with, all the other people who are mentioned in this name, the names which are mentioned in this verse. So now something about the battle etiquettes that I would like to tell you, like as I am continuously, saying that Duryodhan was fearful that this person may not fight or this person may change, sides. So there, even so in the previous yugas, since they were much better compared to the Kali Yuga, in Kali Yuga, like it's totally adharma everywhere. Okay, there are no etiquettes which are being followed for in any aspect of life for that matter. What to speak of war? Okay, in Kali Yuga, you will see that whenever a war breaks out between two countries, generally what happens that one country simply enters into the territory of other country and they just, bombard them and then come back and they call it preemptive strike. Okay, that before the other person realizes, half of their territory will be destroyed already. Okay, so there are no rules and regulations as such. Even like, if the war progresses and if one country is at the verge of defeat, what happens that they switch to guerrilla warfare. Okay, so generally what happens is that they keep on attacking, the people of other side, basically. Okay, so no etiquettes are being followed in Kali Yuga. But in Dwapar Yuga, lot of rules and regulations were followed. Okay, if one such rules and regulation was that they will be only fighting during the daytime. Okay, as soon as the sun will set, the battle will stop, and after that, both the parties will behave as if they are at normal relationships. Okay, like Arjun would actually go to Kaurava's camp and they talk to Duryodhan. Duryodhan would show some respect to Arjun. Okay, come, my dear brother, have your seat. Like that. They will talk. in today's battle, you performed well, but theek hai, kal dekhte hain. We'll see like that. Can you just imagine this kind of scenario, right? That in the morning till evening you are fighting with each other. In the night you are talking just as if nothing has happened, right? So this was one etiquette. Another etiquette was that if at all someone wanted to switch the sides, basically, okay, so they had to do so before the battle started. Okay? Once the battle starts, then they will have to fight for the side which they have chosen. Okay, they cannot switch sides in between. So this is the reason why Duryodhana was much fearful. That battle had not yet started, and he was suspecting that okay, Dronacharya or Bhishma, these two were having some soft corner for Pandavas, so they may switch sides. Okay, Karna was actually not at good terms with Bhishma, so he may switch sides or he may decide not to fight the battle. Or Vikarna, who had opposed Duryodhan during the Vastraharan of the Draupadi, so that's the reason why Duryodhan was fearful that Vikarna may not fight or Vikarna may switch sides. Okay, so this is the reason why he is naming them, and these names have not been taken, randomly. Just he is picking and choosing, just targeting those people. So this is the diplomacy of Duryodhan, basically. Okay, so we'll move on to the next verse. Who will go next? Samanvita Mataji. I think you should go next. Mataji, I think you can read the verses also. So,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
I'm actually feeling a bit low, so yeah, I think you can hear me properly. Can I read?
Yes, absolutely, Mataji. You clearly, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Annecha Bahava Sura Mad Arthe Vakta Jivitaham Nana Shastra Prahal Rana Sarve Yuddha Visharadha.
And read the translation and the purport. Huh?
The connection is not proper. I think Prabhuji, I can't hear
Okay,
you. Hello?
no worries. Yeah, no worries, Mataji. I can read the translation and purport. Not a problem. So the translation. There are
Prabhuji, is
many.
it audible?
Yes, it is audible, Mataji. You can, if you want, you can read the translation and purport. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, 1 second. Just give me a second. So the connection was. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarna, and Salya, all are determined to lay down
No,
their lives for.
not this, Mataji.
No, the translation. Sorry, I think I missed the translation.
So we are on the verse number 9, actually. So I think you
The
are reading
translation.
from. Yeah.
The translation. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. And continue, Prabhu.
Yes, purport.
Perfect. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends.
Yes, very nice purport and very important point that we have read, the last 2 lines. That first, in other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. So we'll analyze this verse, and there's also a small story associated with this verse, so that will also make it a little more interesting. So we'll go to the. So first, we'll talk about Shalya. Now, Prabhupada mentions in his purport that some Jayadrat, Krituvarma, and Shalya. Shalya, this is an interesting story. Okay, so Shalya was actually the uncle of Pandavas. Okay, and he was supposed to fight on the side of Yudhishthir for Pandavas actually. but he was staying very far away. So from a very far away place, like he was coming to Kurukshetra along with his, army. And as he neared the battlefield, he saw that very nice arrangements were made. Facilities were provided to him for him and his army to stay there. Okay, and these facilities, these facilities were actually, arranged by Duryodhana's ministers on his instructions. Okay, and he came there and they welcomed him and they just encouraged him to to use those facilities. That yes, just go ahead, like make full use of these facilities. It is meant for you. Okay, so Shalya was very happy. Like he thought that okay, Yudhishthir Maharaj might have arranged this because he was knowing that I'm supposed to be coming with my army. So he was very, very happy, and very nice arrangements were there. So being fully satisfied by those arrangements, actually he made one statement, okay, that whoever has, made such nice arrangements, has provided such nice facilities for me and my army, I would do anything for them. Okay, I would do anything for them. So just as he made this statement, Duryodhan just walks in as a hero and just says, "Thank you very much. I have done it actually." Right? So now that you have made a statement that you will do anything for me, so you will have to fight this battle from my side actually. So now Shalya was in a fix. Being a Kshatriya, he had given his words, so he cannot retract from that point actually, right? So he had to fight on the side of Kauravas. So just see that he had come to fight for Pandavas by Yudhishthir's side, and ultimately he fell to the tricks of Duryodhana. Just see this fellow, like how tactful and diplomatic he is. That he has employed all the ways to just pull people from Pandava's side also to his side basically. And Shalya, like he went ahead to become the commander-in-chief of Kaurava's army, the last commander-in-chief of Kaurava's army. Because, by the end of Kurukshetra war, all the great personalities were already killed. So he became the last commander-in-chief of Kaurava. Yeah. So this is the story of Shalya, that how he, came to, he was supposed to fight for Pandavas, but he ended up fighting for Kauravas actually. Now, another important aspect here is the word Tyakta Jivita, which is mentioned in the Shloka. Okay, Tyakta Jivita. So the intended meaning, so what intended meaning is that what Duryodhana is saying, that the heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. Okay, so that they can give up their life for me. This is what Duryodhana is saying actually, right? By using this word. But if we go to the exact literal meaning of this Sanskrit word Tyakta Jivita, which it means that they have already given up their lives. Okay, so this is a hint that we are getting in this verse, that as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that all of them have already. It can be concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the evil forces of Duryodhana, right? And this particular verse, or this particular word, Tyakta Jivitaha, is in line with what Krishna says in the 11th chapter, 33rd verse of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, let's see what he says in that verse. So we can see. So if you see the screen, so he says, Maye vete nihata purvam, Maye vete nihata purvameva, nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. Right? So he says, let's see the translation. Therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy flourishing kingdom. Most important line now. They are already put to death by my arrangement. Okay, Tyakta Jivita, that they have already given up their lives. Okay, they are already put to death in my arrangement. And you, O Sabyasachi, just be an instrument and fight and take all the glories. So this is what is the meaning of Tyakta Jivita. Okay. So another very nice verse. So yes, we'll move on to the next one. Who's next? Vasavi Mataji, right? Yeah, Vasavi Mataji. Would you be able to read, Mataji?
No, Prabhuji.
No
I
worries.
cannot see this verse, but I can read the purport and.
Yeah, sure. You can just repeat after me the verse. Verse I will first say. You can repeat after me, and then you can read the purport and translation. Okay. Just repeat after me, Mataji. Okay. Aparyaptam tadasmakam
Aparyaptam tasmakam
balam bhishmabhirakshitam
phalam bhishmabhirachitam
paryaptam tvidime
paryaptam
paryaptam tvidime tesham
paryaptam tviti me tesha
balam bhimabhirakshitam.
bhalam bhishmadhirachitam.
Can read the translation, Mother.
Yeah. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhishma,
By
by
Bhima,
Bhima, is
limited.
limited. Herein, an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the force of the Pandava are limited. Being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who is like a pig in the presence of Bhishma, Duryodhana was already envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on the account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion, his conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained.
So, and this is a very, very, nice verse, which actually shows the pinnacle of diplomatic skills of Duryodhana. Okay, we'll analyze this verse and we'll try to understand how, by using just one word, which has two meanings, he is actually encouraging one side of his army, and also he is hinting that, okay, this side is not fully capable. So he's hinting to Dronacharya, basically, like why it is important for him to be in the army. Okay, so we'll see. Interesting, very interesting. And also, one important thing that is mentioned in this purport is that, as we had discussed in the previous sessions also, that Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima, okay? Because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would be killed by Bhima. Okay? If anyone who was capable of killing him on the sides of Pandavas, it was Bhima. So always he was envious, and also he was very fearful from within. He knew that, okay, Bhima is the only strong person in that Kaurava's side, Pandava's side, who can actually kill him. So let's analyze this verse. Another very interesting thing. So lot of things will come here. So the aparyaptam. Okay. So we'll first see the meaning of this word. Aparyaptam. Tadasmakam balam bhishma virakshitam. Okay. So there are two meanings of these words, and they both are opposite to each other. That is the interesting thing. So Duryodhana is deliberately using this verse. On one hand, he's trying to encourage Bhishma and all the other stalwarts who are there standing with him, and at the same time, he is trying to, uh, you know, pass on subtle hint to Dronacharya that, okay, uh, although Bhishma is there, but we are still we have some room for improvement, and it's very important that you stay on our side. You do not deviate away, you do not show any slackness in the battle, and just fight, okay, with your full capability. That's what he is saying. So just we'll see, understand how. So one meaning of aparyaptam is immeasurable. Okay, so like he's so on one hand, he's saying, okay, our strength is immeasurable and we are very nicely protected by Bhishma. Okay, so Bhishma and all the other stalwarts who are standing there, they are taking, this particular verse in that sense. But Dronacharya took it in the other sense. That aparyapta means insufficient. That, okay, like Bhishma is there, that's true. But still, because that person is having some, soft corner for the Pandavas, so we are still insufficient. Okay, although his presence is there, but still we are not very sufficient because he is not willing to give 100% in the battle. He can show some slackness in the battle. Therefore, O Dronacharya, you just give up all your attachment towards Pandavas and fight with your full capability. So you just see, just by speaking one verse, he is just targeting two people, two people, and like with just opposite meanings. So this is the kind of diplomacy that Duryodhan had. Okay, so all the commanders, they understood the first meaning, that okay, their strength is immeasurable and they are very well protected by Bhishma. Whereas Dronacharya took the second meaning, that okay, because Bhishma is actually attached to Pandavas, so although he is present in the battlefield, still like the strength of the Kauravas is insufficient, okay, not immeasurable. So this is the diplomacy of Duryodhana. So very nice verse, basically, yeah, to analyze. So next we'll move on to the 11th verse and the last verse of today's session. Okay, Vedant Prabhu, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
I would just say the verse, you just repeat after me, and then you can read the purport and translation and purport. Okay?
Sure, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu
Ayanesu cha sarvesu
yatha bhagam avasthitah
yatha bhagam avasthitha
bhishmeva virakshantu
bhishmam
bhishmam eva virakshantu
bhishmam eva bhiraksantu
bhavantah sarva eva hi.
bhavantah sarva eva hi.
Translation.
All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the powers of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So, in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Deva was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might be engaged in the fight and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Deva. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya in the battle because he because he well well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjuna's wife Draupadi in a helpless condition had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that these generals would now completely give it up as they had done during the gambling performances.
The important verse, and this is the last verse for today that we'll see. And then what we are going to do is that we'll have some lessons also that we can learn from. Okay, so most important thing here, okay, that Duryodhana was fully confident. The last part that we saw in the purport of the support of Bhishma and Dronacharya. Okay, but yes, he had his doubts that okay, maybe because of the attachment towards Pandavas, they may opt out of the battle even before the war started. But he was confident, and the reason of that confidence was that when Draupadi was being stripped naked in front of the entire courtroom of Hastinapur, she very piteously asked for help from all these senior members, namely Dhritarashtra, Dronacharya, and Bhishma. Okay, they were all there present in the courtroom, but at that time they did not say a word. Okay, they did not object when Draupadi was being destroyed. So their silence actually gave the strength to Duryodhana. Okay, and it meant that they were supporting Duryodhana. Okay, so this is the reason why, like, he was actually very, confident that okay, Duryodhana will support them in the war, and whatever small attachment they have for Pandavas, they will all give up eventually, and they will fight to the full capability, basically. Okay, so this is the whole, like essence of this particular verse. Now, right from verse number 2 to verse number 11, we have seen how diplomatic Duryodhana was. Okay, and so in the same spirit of diplomacy, like he realized this fact, okay, that first he had glorified all the top commanders of his own army. Okay, now he was actually uh, now apprehensive that okay, what about all the other soldiers? They may feel bad or they may feel discouraged. Okay, that okay, he is just glorifying these people, and there were others also, right, who were very brave and courageous in their own rights, right? So, and by not mentioning them, Duryodhana realized that okay, so they might feel bad, and again they might show some slackness in the battle. So now what he's doing here is that because he mentioned Bhishma several times, he became anxious that others might feel that they are less important. So he says that okay, Bhishma, no doubt, he's a very good, stalwart, and he was an Atiratha, right? Atiratha we had seen in the last session, a personality who is capable of fighting 60,000 opponents at the same time. So that was in Atiratha. So Bhishma was an Atiratha, right? But then he was an old man, right? So uh, so Duryodhan is trying to say that okay, all of you stay in all the strategic positions that has been assigned to you. Okay. The reason why? Because Bhishma, although he's a very, very courageous person, and he is a very strong and a formidable like personality in this battlefield, but still he is a very old person at the same time, right? So when he's fighting the Pandavas army, they will be attacking him from different sides basically, and it's quite possible that he is completely engaged in one side of the battlefield, and Pandavas will get an opportunity to enter into our military phalanx through some other direction, basically, right? So by citing Bhishma's old age, he is trying to encourage all the other, basically, what to say, the military men of his army, so that they feel encouraged and they feel valued. Basically, okay, we have some task in our hand, we have something important to do. We need to protect Bhishma, right? So this is the kind of diplomacy that Duryodhana is showing. Okay, so 2 points we understood from this particular verse, that Duryodhana felt that okay, by naming all the stalwarts, just a few of the stalwarts in his army, the others may feel offended and they may show some slackness. So very diplomatically, he brings up Bhishma's age. That no doubt he's a very good warrior. Therefore, but still he is an old man. So he may be engaged in one side of the battlefield, and the Pandavas may take advantage of that. So you have a very important task in hand, that too, that you have to protect Bhishma there from all possible directions. Okay, that is one thing. Secondly, he knew that Bhishma and Dronacharya, they both will extend their support to him, because when Draupadi was being stripped naked in the courtroom of Hastinapur, at that time, these two personalities had kept quiet. Okay, they did not oppose Duryodhana at that time. So their silence was actually giving Duryodhana strength and confidence to believe that whatever small attachment or whatever small sentiments they have in their hearts regarding for Pandavas, they will eventually give it up and they will fight to the full capability. Okay, so these are the two things that we can understand from this verse. And from this entire scenario, okay, from the next session onward, we'll see that how the battle is about to begin. Okay, so there are certain verses, but this verse number 2 to verse number 11, like we have seen the diplomacy of Duryodhana. That is one thing, but one very important lesson can be learned from this particular verse. These particular verses, basically, what is that important lesson? First, association decides our destination. Okay, we have to be very careful and very choosy, about people whom we associate with, okay, because that will decide our ultimate destination. See, life is very short, okay, especially human form of life. It is very short, and the goal which we have to attain is very high. And that goal is to break the cycle of life and death. okay, and go back home, back to Krishna. Okay. So in this short lifespan and such a high goal, we simply cannot afford to be with the people who are not very serious about this goal. Okay. So wrong association will actually eventually lead us to wrong path. Like no matter how good a devotee we are, but if we are associating with wrong people, we might be chanting 16 rounds, 32 rounds every day. We might be reading the Bhagavad Gita every day. We might be reading Srimad Bhagavatam every day. We might be doing some nice services in the spawn centers or spawn temples every week at least, right? But if we fall into wrong association, slowly but surely, all the interest that we are showing towards spirituality, all the progress that we have made on the path of spirituality will slowly fade away, and we will again fall into the clutches of Maya. Okay, and we will just join all our associates who are not on this path, on the grand highway to hell, basically, right? So best example in this whole scenario or this whole context is that of Karna, right? Now you can see today, like there are so many authors who are actually glorifying Karna. That he was a very great personality. Indeed, he was a very great personality, right? He was a very, very, what to say? He had some very good qualities in him, right? And but there was one problem with Karna. Only mistake that he committed was that he took the side of Duryodhan, who was on the side of Adharma, right? So that is the reason why his ultimate fate was that he was killed by actually Arjun on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, right? Just like, so we have to understand that if our association is not right, okay, our fate is also going to be like all the commanders who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and I mean, who were fighting on the side of Duryodhan, and they all died on the battlefield of. So we can also never attain the supreme destination if our association is not correct. So Nectar of Instructions, which is written by Sri Rup Goswami, is a very nice book, basically. Like, especially those who are beginners in Krishna consciousness, they must, read that book actually. Okay? So in the verse number 2, he has beautifully explained that there are 6 things which actually brings down our devotional services, okay? Which are hazardous for our devotional services. So the verse says, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jan sangascha laulyam cha shadbhir bhakti vinashyati. Okay, so what means? It means that there are 6 things that destroy shadbhir bhakti vinashyati. 6 things that destroy the devotional services. What are those 6 things? Atyahara. That means eating too much or accumulating wealth or anything which is more than necessary. Okay. So that is the first thing which can destroy our devotional service. Eating too much or accumulating any material thing which is more than necessary. Second, prayasascha, endeavoring too much for mundane things. Okay, like we work very hard. Literally, we work like donkeys at office. 12 hours, 14 hours, for what? Just in a hope that okay, someday I will get a promotion or a nice increment or a good appraisal, something like that. Some reward at office, something like that, right? So that is endeavoring too hard, for material things. So that is again, very hazardous for our devotional service. Satyahara prayasascha. Prajalpa, gossiping. Okay, gossiping is another thing which is, strictly forbidden for people who are serious about their spiritual practices. Okay, one should try to remain silent and speak only as much as it is required. Okay, even better that if you can speak only about Krishna and his pastimes. Okay, but that is the level of Paramhansas. We cannot attain that, especially if we are a grihastha or a householders. Like we have to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. Okay, but then we should not be closely associating with those people. Just talk to them, wish them nicely. Be very humble, polite to them, smile to them, but then do not engage in too much of personal matters with them. Okay, do not be overly friendly with them. Okay, just keep your interactions to as much as it is required. If at all you want to associate with someone, associate with high class devotees who are very serious in Krishna consciousness. Okay, that will help you to progress in Krishna path. So that is one thing. So we have seen prajalpa, that is gossiping. Okay, so gossiping or speaking unnecessarily, that is also very hazardous for. So atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha. That means niyamagraha means following the rules and regulations which have been mentioned in the Vedic scriptures just for the sake of following them without understanding or not following them at all. First, we need to read the Vedas or the Vedic instructions. We need to understand what it is trying to say. Why? What is the logic behind performing certain rituals or some religious practices? The Vedas are very very scientific. Okay, it's not something which has popped out of the mind of someone. It has been given by Krishna himself. Vedascha sarvar aham eva vedyo. Right? This is what he's saying. From all the Vedas, I am to be known. And indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta. Right? That is what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So we have to first understand all the Vedic principles, and then we need to implement that with full dedication and devotion and a full faith that okay, whatever I am doing is correct because that has been instructed by none other than Krishna. Okay, so that is the correct way. Niyamagraha is just blindly following them without understanding, just for the sake of doing it, which most of the people do today, or not doing it at all. So atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jan sangascha. This is the important thing that we are reading here, association. Jan sangascha, that if we are not if you are associating with material minded people, if you are not associating with devotees, sooner or later we will fall back into the material pool. There is no denying this fact. Okay, so we have to be very careful about the association of our association. Tyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jan sangascha lolyam cha shadvirbhakti. Lolyam means greedy. So being greedy for the material mundane things, basically. I may have, I'm greedy for a nice house, nice car, nice mobile phone, this, that, whatever. That will actually, cause a hindrance in the progress on the path of spirituality. Okay. So this is the important lesson that we can learn, that life is very short, and those people who are not serious about the goal of human life, who are not serious about breaking this cycle of life and death, we should not be associating too much with those people. Just associate as much as it is necessary. It's not that you cut down all the ties and just close yourself in one room. No, not like that. But at a personal level, do not be too much engaged. If at all you want to associate with the devotees. I'd like to pause here and just you can have any questions right now. Now is the time you can ask them, or any realizations that you liked about this session, the topics on which you would like to meditate, anything. Like the floor is open now.